Hello and welcome to the wonderful world of old sheet music. I am your host, Nicholas Carroll. Tonight I am looking at this piece, which is Lento, from two Pierrot pieces by Cyril Scott. So, unless you have studied music at a collegiate level and had several music history courses, you probably haven't heard of Cyril Scott, but he was actually a pretty important composer. He was a child prodigy in England, and he was sent to study in Germany at a conservatory, and at the age of 12, I think it was. I'm trying to remember that. It's been a while, but it was definitely when he was under 16, so he was not like super young. He wasn't 5 or anything, but I'm guessing age 12, somewhere around there. And he ended up becoming a composer, of course, after that, being a kind of a touring pianist for a while. And he also became a writer and very interested in the occult movement, which was actually really popular in Britain during his life. His music was very important, that it influenced Stravinsky, Debussy, all sorts of other famous composers that people do know, even if you haven't studied music in college. But Cyril Scott was an influence to them. So this particular piece was written in 1904, and he is also someone who is very long-lived. He was a proponent of all sorts of alternative medicine, like at the time he was alive. And one of the things that's really interesting, if you look it up, is he was a big proponent of drinking apple cider vinegar, which now we know is actually healthy for real. And at the time, everyone acted like he was crazy for saying that, but it apparently turned out to be somewhat true. And of course, a lot of the other stuff he wrote did not turn out to be true, but that one happened to be. So I thought I'd mention that. So this piece is rather advanced, of course, because this is by a Romantic era classical composer. So you can see that it is quite involved. It is like on the level of a Debussy piece. So like I always say, I am sight reading this. I have not played it before, though I am quite familiar with him. I'm not familiar with this piece in particular. I am more familiar with like Lotus Land, a couple other of his famous pieces, but not this one. So this one is Lento. That means long. It comes from the word Lent. Of course, people may be familiar with that word from Christianity, and it actually does mean long, and it's the season of Christianity calls Lent. It is called that because it's when the days are getting longer at the beginning of the year before Easter comes. So that's what Lent means. So in music, Lent means long, stretched out. In other words, really slow. It is also super soft for most of it. It has an accorda pedal that's really soft pedal comes in. And it also has some very loud sections. I'm just looking through it here right now. I can see that. But a lot of very strange rhythm and a lot of strange chords, which is what like I said, influenced both Debussy and Stravinsky in particular, who would have studied Cyril Scott's compositions like this one. So I will do my best. It is slow, so that will help, but there are some pretty elaborate chords here that are not like sight reading material. If you've ever played an instrument, especially piano, you'll know what I mean when you look at something like this and you are in the key of D flat major, but then you have practically everything's changed here anyways, like the key signature barely even matters. So I will do my best. We'll see how it sounds to the best of my ability. I forgot to mention, now that it is from something called Two Pierrot Pieces. If you've forgotten, I did one other piece a while ago. I think it was one of the first ones I did. That was a Pierrot piece. A Pierrot is like a pantomime, like a mime slash clown. It's not exactly a clown. It's not exactly a mime. They don't really exist much today anymore, but they were like seen as kind of like interesting to people who were interested in the occult because they never spoke, so it gave them this air of mystery and that kind of thing. So, and they wore kind of creepy makeup and outfits. So that's kind of probably what intrigued him by Pierrot, that he wanted to write a piece about that, I'm guessing.
So particularly that piece, you can definitely see the influence there that he would have had on Claude Debussy and vice versa, honestly, because this was written towards the end of Cyril Scott's life. So could have been influencing each other at that point in history. So this piece, like I said, is by someone who is very into the occult. I'm going to post a picture of him on my Facebook post because I still remember seeing his picture in an old textbook and being like, okay. Everyone in my class is like, there he is. He's a goth. You know, he's like the original goth. If you were from my generation, that's what we had. You know, we called people like that who were interested in dressing all in black. And he's kind of got his pinky ring with like a big ring with a jewel on it, and he's like, okay, is he a vampire kind of thing? Like, he just kind of dressed that way. So Cyril Scott, Lento.